Kim Freeman is a professional lost cat tracker. Kim has 10 years of practice finding missing cats and the dirt under her nails to prove it. Combining animal tracking with bird language and the science of lost cat behavior, she's been deemed the world expert in lost cat recovery, solving cases in 48 states and 23 countries. Her mission is getting cats found before they end up in shelters, and she's created online guides on how to do it. Using special techniques tailored to feline psychology, these new methods improve owner success and reduce shelter intake. Alerting owners to these guides relieves demands on the shelter staff and gives owners best practices, guidance based on science instead of myths. Freeman's online Lost Cat Kit can be found at lostcatfinder.com, and her years of happy reunion stories are posted on Facebook/lostcatfinder. Excellent. All right, I'm going to send this over to you, Kim.
All right, thank you, Stacy. Honored to be here, and I want to thank you and Kristen for creating this event. Stacy, you really should be awarded like the patron saint of cats, not just for these seminars, but all the work you've done for cats for 30 years. But until you're knighted by the king, I want to give you some purrs and applause. And thank you, Peter, for kicking this off. So, return to home. I don't know how much of the audience works with a shelter, but I'm sure everyone here is well aware of the low return to home rate for cats.
Kim, I'm going to just interview. Do you want me to do that poll question?
Oh, you do? Okay.
Do you? It's your poll question. So would you like me to watch that now?
I'm curious.
Okay. So, is your main work with a shelter or rescue group or as an independent TNR? I work or volunteer with the city shelter. I work with nonprofit rescue. I'm an independent TNR hero, all of the above or none of the above. So we have 12% work or volunteer with the city shelter, 36% work with nonprofit rescue, 28% independent TNR hero, 20% all of the above. So we are definitely multitaskers. Yes. And 4% none of the above.
All right, I like that, all of the above. All right, so this session is to explore the correlation between lost cats and return to home numbers and give you some ways to help with both. Before we start and we don't have to do a poll on this, but I'm wondering if anyone is part of the Maddie's RTH challenge this next month coming up, because I think this year they're giving out like $300,000 in grants. Is that right, Stacy?
And Amber's out here too. They're giving out quite a bit.
Yeah, well, not all to the same shelter, obviously, but yeah, that's a lot. And they're one of our sponsors, so very cool. But I wanted to say that implementing the methods and using the resources that we're about to cover will give these people a big jump for who are signed up. And of course, even if you're not, this session will help get more cats back home. So, why is this thing not advancing? There we go. So we talked about, everybody here knows about the low national average, correlation, methods, resources, getting cats back home. So as Stacy said, for the last 10 years, my full-time profession has been recovering lost cats. So I've gotten pretty good at it. Think of me as your go-to resource, whether you're out in the field or inside of a shelter or advising people online. In the next hour, I'm going to share some of my methods and talk about lost cats and how to increase the happy reunions. So before I started doing lost cats, worked with PASS in Austin, doing in-home cat behavior, like the Jackson Galaxy method. And then 2012, I trained in cat psychology and tracking. 2014, I started traveling on cases. 2016, I coached a park ranger named Shannon Jay to recover his lost cat. And then the next year, went out to California to teach Shannon and his fire cat group how to recover these poor PTSD cats whose houses had burned down in the wildfires. So the thread throughout has been the study of lost cat behavior. And so far, I have found cats in 48 states and 23 countries. Some of these were a result of online long-distance coaching. Some of them were going out in person, and some were a result of these online search guides. The whole Save the Lost Cats journey started with Mr. Purr. Here's Mr. Purr in Texas. We lived at a ranch next to, well, we were on a horse ranch, and next door was the cattle rancher with the longhorns. Mr. Purr is the reason I made this my career. He would have died if I had listened to the typical standard lost cat advice. He would have died trapped in a shipping container at the rancher next door. So those 5 days that he was missing were a real lesson in understanding the immense pain and stress that owners go through. Finding Mr. Purr is actually what inspired me to go full-time into helping others. So I don't know how many people here have been through the hell of a lost cat situation, but this kind of event can happen to even the best owners. You know, visitors, kids, you can't constantly control every door all the time. No one really, having a lost cat is going to create panic. It's a skill set a lot of people don't understand. They just go into their natural, response of no, and chasing the cat. And then, these people are in panic mode. They're getting tons of tips thrown at them, often making the situation worse. So over the years, we have found that better information to the owners when they realize they need it can have a big impact on the shelter world. Because, essentially if owners know the right tactic to use for their situation, the cat gets found instead of, being brought in as a stray to the shelter months later. And this way the shelters don't end up with this influx of stray cats, all the ones who were never found. So let's look at the average shelter outcome. Now, this is more recent than the 10-year outcome that a lot of us are used to seeing. And the good news here is adoptions have increased exponentially. So that is fantastic. Euthanasia has gone down, but reclaim is still hovering around 3%, 2 and 3 at most shelters. So, excuse me. Let's talk about why. Why is it still so bad for cats? One of the reasons, and of course, let's talk about some ways to make it better. One of the reasons is the lack of ID. Home Again says less than 1% of cats are microchipped. So, with only 1% of owned cats microchipped, and here's some of the typical reasons why that I hear when I get a lost cat case. These are what people usually tell me. Or sometimes it's number 5 would be, I just never got around to it. But, if you look at the numbers, with only 1% of owned cats chipped, no wonder the reclaim is only 2 and 3%. A second reason is that most lost and found groups are dog focused. Now, when someone does post a cat, they usually get thrown a bunch of cookie cutter tips that may not be appropriate for their situation. It's a whole different set of help for dogs versus cats. Dogs, reason number 3 is the difference, between a lost dog and a cat. in general, when a dog gets loose, they run. They run from people, they run from cars, they run and they roam, but they get seen. Whereas cats hide, and they are really good at it. They are the masters of hide and evade. Reason number 4, some of the old wives' tales. And these are some of the typical things. Stacy had the litter box myth in there. That's still getting passed around. Most of the people that we coach have already tried these things and attracted in various other cats and wildlife. So you can see here with this coyote, it's one of the many reasons we do not advise putting out litter box. Number 5, the old wives' tales. People still believe chips track a cat. Most people I work with tend to think that their cat will come out if they call them, because they always did at home. And when the cat doesn't come out, they assume he's not there. A lot of people think their cat was stolen because they can't find him. Must have been taken in. The old cat went away to die. We've studied that a lot, and we can talk about that later. And of course, the coyote. A lot of people assume it was a coyote, but most of these are rare. Most of these are wrong, actually. So let's talk about what's right, what's been proven by science and borne out by experience. Instead of human thinking, we need to consider lost cat psychology. The cat who always came when you shaking the treat jar at home is going to act different when he's loose in the vet's parking lot. But a stressed owner isn't going to realize this, and they're going to base their search on what the cat was like at home. But even a cat that's pretty bold at home, when they're stressed, they go into survival mode where nothing matters but their safety. Food is not on their list of priorities here. They're just trying to stay safe and not be seen. So you add to that a cat's perception, how they see the world, and that complicates things even more. Studies show that cats can't recognize humans very well, especially outdoors. And while humans can see up to about 200 feet pretty well, cats can't make out detail more than 20 feet in front of them. So they're not going to let anything get that close when they're stressed. All they know is something big is coming, and survival mode says, get the hell out of there. Reason number 8 is that owners often assume the worst when they lose a cat. So this is Petra, and she's a good example of this. She was lost in early January in coyote country, and the owner assumed the worst and gave up by February. I found her skinny and matted 10 months later. So here's this little cat, little bedraggled Petra, who just, she survived almost a year. No sightings, despite the weather, despite the coyote presence. So I really wish people would not assume coyotes. So many neighbors say, there's coyotes around here, and then it shuts the owner down. So that's one of the myths I would like to dispel. I mean, sure, it does happen in some areas, parts of the country, but it's not as frequent as people assume. So Petra's a good example of this as well, the mismatched timeline between humans and cat thinking. Here's a typical scenario. In general, the owner during the first week or two is going to try the usual advice that they're getting online. Nothing is working, and at about 2 weeks, they will often assume the worst and give up. Later, eventually, the cat gets hungry and desperate enough to emerge and eventually approach a human. Now, not all of them will do this. A lot of them get absorbed into feral colonies, but once the cat does approach a human who may or may not post a found cat notice, the tragedy is that at this point, the owner is in grief avoidance and no longer looking. So it's kind of a mismatch between when the owner is looking and when the cat is out and noticed. It's really, really painful for people to keep searching for weeks and deal with the just constant stress and disappointment day after day. Very, very hard. So from here, after here we are, 3 and 4 months later, the cat can be maybe rehomed or taken to a shelter. And then here comes another unidentified stray through the door. So how do we solve this? One key is prevention, and prevention before the cat shows up at the shelter. And prevention starts with education. So shelters, rescues, anybody who cares about cats, we have a responsibility to offer owners resources that are comprehensive and useful, not memes and, myths. Now, a lot of shelters do offer tip sheets on their lost and, excuse me, I'm not used to talking this much this early. Sorry, guys. So shelters, this is great progress. Some of the tip sheets are even cat focused, which is wonderful. But it's tough to cover all the situations and scenarios and permutations with a tip sheet. People freaking out at 2 in the morning need very specific strategy for their cat. They need situation specific advice. And, it's kind of like the FBI does not give out tip sheets on how to find a missing person. It's a it's a science with procedurals. Is it a runaway kid or is it a confused senior? Is this city or country terrain? What weather is coming? Each of these situations requires different tactics. And those first 48 hours really are key with a person or a cat. So we all know there's no typical cats. Every cat's different, and I believe their recovery strategy should be too. Now, a good start is based on the 4 cat types. A lot of you may have seen this before. This was pioneered by Kat Albrecht, and it's a great basis for creating a strategy because the friendly cat is going to act a lot different once he's out the door, or if he doesn't come home, than the skittish xenophobic cat. So it's a good start, but then you have to add in other factors and you end up with almost endless permutations. You've got situation, age, weather, geography, so many details that matter and make a difference. So this is why advice, even based on cat type, can backfire and put the cat at risk. Here is Sierra. She's an example. Sierra was lost. This was a case in Austin. And Sierra was lost at this condo complex. You can see on the map, outside of her door was mostly parking lot. So what happened is a visitor came over with a dog unexpectedly, and Sierra freaked and dashed out the door. The owners, searched, they called, they put up posters, there were 0 sightings. So looking at this map, this flag is like right where she was last seen, dashing out the door. And if you see, it's mostly parking lot. So what does cat psychology say? That she's going to hide, right? Probably under a car. But in this case, with all of the, people and dogs walking past and car activity, that's not good enough. So it doesn't feel safe enough for her. So her next best bet is going underground. Hey, Kim. I have a visitor in the house. I don't know if you heard her meow. So we spotted 3 hairs on the cover of the storm drain to confirm that she had indeed gone underground, and set up a camera to watch the tunnels and got the image and caught her at midnight. So here's an example of how you can put flyers on every phone pole and post on every Facebook group, but these cats are just not coming out to be seen. This next case is a kitty lost far from home. This is Poncho in California, and this is a case of an adventure cat lost in the wilderness. So as soon as Poncho was out of the car, this was post-COVID, and everybody was stir crazy, and I guess they decided this was a good time to take their cat on their first adventure. But as soon as he was out of the car, his feet hit the ground, he backed out of the harness and ran down the slope. This little dot right here is where he was last seen going under a fence. So the owners quickly got a search party together of friends and some local rescues, and they spent 10 days combing the hills. Let's see, I think I've got a better picture of the bigger view here. Yeah. So they spent 10 days combing the hills, you know, shaking trees, calling, and sending out lots of baited traps, which of course drew in lots of hungry wildlife, including coyotes. So finally, the owners contacted us after day 10, and we told them to call off the search parties, get rid of the traps, dispose of all that food, because the bait, all that bait has attracted, you know, all these coyotes into the area, and a bobcat who actually looks ear-tipped to me. Maybe not. But any of these coyotes could easily have caught and killed Poncho. So you can see posters, treats, and traps were not going to work in this case. They needed really specific advice that factored in terrain and wildlife population. So they followed the plan. They followed our plan, and Poncho was found. Yay. Here he is back with Alex in Berkeley. Alex is, I think she was a data scientist. So yes, lost cats can happen even to data scientists. So the next case is Milo. Milo is still an indoor cautious cat, and he disappeared overnight. He was on the couch when the owners went to bed, and then by morning, poof, he's gone. So after searching their home, which was a very old home in New England, I think 1905. So it had this weird basement with all these rock walls with cubbies where cats could get behind. They could climb the wall and then get behind it. So the owners had searched as well as they could, the basement, the whole house. And then they did the usual. They made the trip to the shelters, they put up posters, and they went out to buy traps. On day 5, when they sent me a profile to review, I spotted a key clue. One of the owners had, actually they didn't put this in their profile, I think this came out while I was talking to them. One of the owners had gotten up in the middle of the night to get something out of the garage. So I told them to search every cubic inch of the garage and also any vehicles that were parked in it, not just the engine, but up in the guts of the car. And sure enough, Milo had been hiding in the owner's Tesla for 5 days. Here he is under the radiator hose. That orange lump is Milo. So he had stayed there for 17 miles of driving. He was there for the trip to the shelter. He was there for putting up all the posters. He even made 2 trips to Home Depot. All that time, here's Milo up in the chassis of his owner's car. So this is a example of how, focusing on the usual shelter posters trap advice could have meant Milo getting run over at any of the stops or turns they made those 5 days and 17 miles of driving. So sometimes the point here is sometimes giving out standard advice can do more harm than good. So the moral of these cases is that each cat requires special techniques, and it's more than just putting out a trap. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, the whole trap go-to plan. So after years of cases like these, I got some advice. Some of you may know Monica Dangler. She was in Austin at the time, and she suggested that I combine my research and experience into an online guide. So that way people all over the world could get instant access to my techniques and figure out what was right for their cat type and situation. So we needed water. We needed an online guide that would be comprehensive but not overwhelming. And the goal was a DIY kit that owners could download 24/7. So here's an example of the first version. I made one in English. This is the English cover and one in Spanish. And essentially it lays out all the strategies and best practices so owners who know their cat best can tailor the technique to their situation and avoid the typical mistakes. It's combined with the video, it's like a show and tell. The booklet is what tells them what to do. Yeah, booklet tells them what to do, video shows them. That way owners can learn how to do stuff they've never done before when they're panicked and sleep deprived. It covers, things they need to know fast, like the difference between cat traps and raccoon traps, how to set them, where to set them, programming trail cameras, setting up motion alerts, details like what bait is best, should the trap be covered or uncovered. All these details that can make a difference are covered so that the owner can determine the best plan of action. So I want to pause here and show a video. Hopefully I can remember how to do that. And this is about the trapping. I see a lot of people jumping right to traps when a cat is lost, like it's the magic wand. And this set of trap advice is like the new litter box tip, meaning, it's well-meaning but misguided. I'm starting to see it everywhere. But trying to trap an escaped indoor cat is not like catching the typical feral who's, comfortable with certain place every day, eating at a certain place, certain area, certain car coming up, person coming toward them. So let's play the video. All right, so I want y'all to watch not only how this cat is behaving, but towards the end, the owner steps out her back door. And just the sound of the latch of the door opening spooks the cat away. So people don't understand, even before you've set foot out into the yard, the cat's already gone. And they wonder why, I've combed my whole yard and I can't find my cat. Anyway, just check this out. This also shows how important it is to immediately cover a trap. All right. So, you know, I've seen this phenomenon over and over, trying to recover the escaped indoor cats in particular. The outdoor cats are not nearly as fearful. And, you know, it may be that for cats like this, it's almost like when you pull a carrier out to prep for a trip to the vet. You know, they see this trap come out. Or, you know, it could just be that they are in what they consider the Amazon jungle and they're just very scared. They're in survival mode. So you can see how careful that cat every single step. All right, so in 90% of cases, the lost cat kit is all people really need to get their cat recovered and figure out which strategy to follow. But I do also offer them live coaching and on-site search in most states. So people look to shelters for advice, and I hope those of you who are at shelters will let them know this option exists. I hear it from almost every person that finds me. Oh my God, I wish I'd known about this 3 weeks ago. At this point, they've got to dig through all the companies that are paying to be at the top of Google now, and I'm not up there. So it takes them a while to find me, I guess. But anyway, this is how Oregon Humane does it. They list, you know, several resources, and, you know, a good list of resources on a website can be very helpful, and it can prevent cats from coming through the door. But what about in the shelter? Once the cat is in the shelter, what can we do inside the shelter to help cats? We really need a better system. You know, obviously the 3% is not working. So I have come up with this 3-part plan that encompasses both human psychology and cat psychology and does not put extra demands on the staff. And ideally a plan, you know, obviously it would be cheap or free. So this system meets all 3 of those. This is how you can cover all 3 using, you know, you could use 1 volunteer to do all of this. So here's how it works. When the owner comes through the door, and they're looking for their lost cat, a volunteer gives them a lost cat report, and it's very specific. And ideally will include a photo. Owners always have photos of their cats on their phone now. Then the volunteer signs the owner up for auto alerts, and we'll talk about the detail of those in a minute, and then hands them a contact sheet, a sheet of contacts, and a resource list. And of course, you know, the resource list can be from the web page, or it can just be a sheet that, oh wait, all right, we just covered this, educate, intake. Yeah, so the resource list can look as simple as this. This is a list of, you know, grouped. So here's my search guides. These are databases everyone should know about, especially Petco's, Love Lost, the chip companies, social media, and pay to boost companies. Most shelters are going to want to include a little disclaimer, like this is the one Oregon Humane uses. Provided as a resource only, these are outside companies. All right, so for anybody who does, like back here, for anyone who does want to include a link to the Lost Cat Kit, you may want to know about the shelter donation program. This is where, you know, anytime anybody in the community uses the guides, it gives the shelter an auto donation. And it's cool because any rescue group or shelter or even individual can use it. So here's the link for that. That lets you educate the community and get recurring donation. So the next step after resources, signing the owner up for the auto alerts. These are photos of new intake cats that are sent to the owners via email. And the photos are key for this. This system is compliments of John Dunn, who came up with this during a podcast we did. So the photos are key. Here's how it works. Every cat that comes to the door, we get 2 very specific photos, a front face close-up, and Stacy, you know that's Henry, and a full body side view. And ideally, they're taken against a plain background, or you can use this software called Remove Background to take out all that, whatever you happen to have in the background. This really makes the pictures pop, and it's ideal for the auto alert emails because then people just glance and they can see it's their cat. They don't have to study it. But it's also good to give to potential adopters if the cat is in the shelter. That way they'll have the perfect lost cat flyer images if they ever need them. These kind of photos, especially the full body, is key for quick recognition of the cat out in the world as other people, as strangers would see them, you know, running across the road. And for some reason, it's really rare that people take these 2 photos. Well, people have, you know, the face pictures, but the full body looking at the camera is very rare. So everybody who has a cat, take pictures of your cat right now so you have that if you ever need it. So here's how that would look as an auto alert. And basically, you have some very basic description about them, but the focus is the photo. Area found can be useful, but you know, cats get transported, cats travel, so you don't want people to focus on that primarily. But anyway, this is a passive way. You're just auto emailing, you know, each day, each week, whatever works for you. You're sending a group email out to everyone who signed up for these alerts of your new intake. And, you know, it gives the owner a passive way they can still be involved and keep a lookout in case their cat finally lands at the shelter, you know, 3 months, 6 months, 10 months later. All they have to do is glance at the images to stay involved. And, you know, also, you know, this is a prime opportunity. You can also, with this email, offer a coupon, free microchip once your cat is found. This way the owner has motivation to let you know their cat was found, and you can update your data and boost your RTO, and plus another cat gets microchipped. So there it is. That's the 3 steps. Education, take the reports and send out the intake photos. And hopefully that means nothing new for the staff to do. So now let's talk about non-stray intake, the owner surrenders. The key here is appointments combined with counseling. And this is something I learned from Patty back in the man-check days of Austin Pets Live. So the appointment period gives you time to observe the cat's behavior in-home and solve it, you know, like the Jackson Galaxy method. You solve the behavior and the cat stays in the home. And as a side bonus, you can use those in-home visits to microchip the cat. Because as we know, chips are cheap insurance. So if you can find a way or get a grant, definitely try to make it easy for the owners to, if you can, offer free microchipping just for cats. Don't have, people can bring dogs in all day long. Dogs love going for car rides. But if you make it easy for the owners, you know, it could be like a drive-through like Monica Frendon did, where she would just hop in the car and chip the cat and they were on their way. But even better is in home, because, you know, it addresses almost every one of those reasons owners don't chip. And what we've seen to work well as far as scheduling that is using the Nextdoor app. So you can say, you know, on this day, we're going to be in this little section, this neighborhood, and people can sign up ahead of time. And that way the van's not driving all over town. So if you can do that, highly recommended. Lots of shelters have had huge increases in their RTH rates, in a big part thanks to microchips. Field services. We're going to have some real experts on field services, but yes, they can do a lot to prevent intake. We got more focused presentations coming up, but here is a sample procedure. This was put together by Haas, and basically the officer is no longer like, I'm the dog catcher bringing animals into the shelter. We need to get rid of that image the public may still have in some places. These folks are heroes, and they're getting pets found out in the field, found and returned out in the field, not just dogs, but cats too. So obviously these trucks should all have scanners on them. Although, a nice alternative in addition to that would be putting scanners in fire stations. These have proven to be a really great alternative when the vets and the shelters and the PetSmarts are closed. And for some reason, people are more comfortable taking an animal, a cat, to a fire station than to a vet or a shelter, because I guess they think they're going to be charged, but they don't at the fire station. I don't know. It has been successful. I guess it sounds like, especially from Peter's talk, a lot of people are doing SNR and return to field. Hopefully everybody here knows that cats have a 65% better chance of being reunited with their owner if they're left where they are versus the 3% if they're brought to a shelter. So, can't stress enough, healthy cats, only the healthy cats are returned. Especially the healthy, well-fed, friendly cats. Put them back where they were. Make sure, of course, that they're, microchip sterilized. This is the SNR program, but this makes room for the cats who really need to be in the shelter. And when the cat's returned, I recommend that a found cat flyer be put up. Let people know that the cat is there in case it isn't obviously someone, 3 doors down where the cat was picked up. A lot of people, you may not get the cat at the shelter, but you may have people calling, what do I do? I found a cat. And it really helps to have kind of this triage plan of what to say when people call, or something on your website. And this again is from Haas. And Monica Frendon put this together, and it's a really good detailed analysis with a page 2, which isn't here. I can share this with y'all if anybody wants it, but it gives action steps, and it's very clearly, assess each case individually. Are there medical issues? What do you need to do? Here's where to go. Each of the steps is if this, then that. So some additional programs I would love to see rescues and shelters consider. I think more shelters are doing this, but every cat, this is a quote from Monica, every cat we touch gets a chip. I know not everyone can afford to do that, but that would be ideal. So we talked about the in-home chipping, but you could plan just microchip events that are only for cats so that they don't have to be stressed about the barking dogs and stuff. And then, at adoptions, register the chip on the spot. Make sure that it is registered to the owner and that they are very clear they have to change the info if they move. And maybe this bullet should probably be at the top. I would love to see shelters offering trap and trail camera programs where they're renting it out, with a deposit, or they're loaning it out with a deposit and a list of very clear instructions, or, a link to the video demo. But people need to understand, don't just throw a trap out. I personally think trail cameras are much more useful, especially in the first 10 days. You want to know where the cat is first before you start throwing traps out. Partly because of what we talked about before, drawing in the other cats and wildlife, but you don't want the lost cat or the escaped cat to see any animal, especially another cat, thrashing around in a trap, because then it's, when it's their turn, they're way less likely to go in. They're already scared enough of it. So recap here, best practices before the door and in the shelter. So I hope everybody here that is in any way associated with the shelter has a lost and found page at this point. And I hope that you will include a link to my materials on it. And start taking pictures of those cats. Get rid of that background and send out the auto emails for anybody who signs up for them. And then in the shelter, we talked about all these, I think, pretty detailed. Definitely empower your field services folks, in-home behavior consults, and in-home microchipping. So where are we for time? I hope y'all have gleaned some good, useful ideas here you can use. And if you do use my Lost Cat tips, I hope that you will link a credit to Lost Cat Finder. This is all I do, and it's nice when people can get the complete strategy. And you know, that way we can all work together to get the more cats found and get the lost ones back home. So here's some happy smiley kitties and a very relieved owner. This is Crystal with Nomu after 10 months of searching. And these two were so dedicated. Now, they were running all over town because they were also working with animal pet psychics. And the psychics were saying, oh, no, he's here. And, you know, another one would say, no, he's at a horse farm. And, you know, so, and they had a tracking dog come out, which also had them all over the map. Anyway, he was found at an airport, nowhere near any of those places, 10 months later. And fortunately, I don't know if you can tell about his fur, but yeah, he is back to normal and happy to be back home. They also found, while they were looking for him, they found a cat named Mr. Scraggles who was in desperate need of help, in very bad shape. So here's my website and email if anybody wants to get in touch or share the link with others. And let's do a quick salute to Maddie's Fund and for sponsoring the RTH Day and the generous grants they're offering. But, you know, beyond Maddie's deadline, I want this stuff to be useful and be a resource to make real changes in cats' lives and owners and shelters. And obviously the return to home numbers. You know, at the current 3% level, there's nowhere to go it up.
There were definitely couple questions. Everybody wants to know, how did you find Poncho?
Poncho, there's a couple of scenarios that usually work when a cat's lost away from home. And we just went through the list and started with the simplest one first. And in this case, it was, you know, get rid of the food and the traps and all the distractions. And I had the owners just go sit in after it turned dark, just go sit quietly on a blanket near where they had parked. Some cats will stick close. Now, he went down the hill. Some cats will migrate back to where they last felt safe, which was in the car for this cat, but some will start to migrate home. And, you know, my policy is cover every angle, but you got to start somewhere. So I had them go sit near the bushes that were close to where they parked. And at midnight, they heard a meow. And, you know, I coached them on, don't get up, don't walk towards him, you know, have a towel over your shoulder, do this. And they were able to lure him and get him. So it was really...
How did you get that picture of him in the car? Like, I mean, how did they find him in the car? Was Poncho was the one in the Tesla?
Oh, no, that was Milo.
Oh, that was Milo. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Poncho was the one lost in the wilderness in California.
Okay.
Were they asking about Milo?
Nope, they were asking about Poncho. I was thinking Milo. So, all right. So no, they were asking about how was Poncho found. So you answered their question. I was shocked about the Milo and the Tesla. I thought that was pretty shocking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, I guess I would eventually, I guess, think to look in my car, but after driving around like that, I don't know. I would probably be like, you know,
Yeah.
so.
My theory on that one is because it was a Tesla, it was so quiet and it was less of a, oh, I got to get out of here situation.
Right. What do you do with people who have like indoor outdoor cats? Donna, I'm reading your question out here, so if I'm getting it wrong, just let me know if I've got it wrong here in understanding. So she's going, what about indoor outdoor cats when owners say, oh, well, they just stay in my backyard? So, you know, how do we deal with that scenario?
Yeah, they always come home until the day they don't. You know, for those cases, I have to look at the cat's personality, and then I got to look at a satellite map or their potential cat. I've got a case tonight to deal with that I think is a cat hater. You got to look at the surrounding area. Are there neighbors who have complained on next door about cats before? Are they near a power line easement or a water source? You know, then you got to worry about coyotes a little more. That's not a good answer. It depends. But as far as talking to those people, is that what the question really means? Is what to say to them or how to deal with the lost cat?
Yeah. So Donna, if you can explain a little bit more in the chat, that'll help me be able to, oh, here, how to find the cat. So I guess if it's an indoor outdoor cat and the cat has disappeared after a while, she's saying how to find the cat.
Yeah. You know, generally something, you know, the indoors are the ones that are hiding really well, hiding and evading. The ones who are allowed to come and go, that means something's happened. And, you know, like I said, it could be the neighbor. It could just be, it was trash day and the cat's stuck in someone's garage. You know, you got to go through all the variables and possibilities.
Yep. And that's what your resource, a lot of people have some, what I would say, sort of first step questions. There's, you know, what to do specifically when a cat escapes from a home. And I would assume your lost cat finder guide kind of will walk you through those different scenarios. I mean, a lot of things you're saying, it depends because you've got so many different factors at play with each scenario. So when
each cat type, yeah.
Right. So when you're using a scenario of your case studies, it's just sort of guidance, but yet each cat is different and each scenario is different. So really the guide is an important resource for folks to go to and go to your website to be able to get that kind of help. A follow-up though, I will say Rachel wants to, so was Poncho found the first night or was Poncho lost for a period of time?
Oh no, they were doing traps for 10 nights before they contacted me. And then I advised them and they found him, I think, on night 12.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. And so obviously part of your checklist too is finding out, as you said, indoor only cats behave differently than indoor outdoor cats, than outdoor only cats. So really understanding that cat source. Rachel is clarifying here. I meant the first night that they sat on the blanket. Did they catch the cat when they sat on the blanket that night?
Yeah. I think it was the first night. Might have been the second, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, in the dark. Cats feel safer in the dark. They were not, you know, car headlights. Car wasn't running. So yeah.
Gotcha. Excellent. All right. Oh, we get hooray, hooray, happy endings. Kim, yeah. I want to thank you so much for the presentation. We are right now, we are at 12:45, and so it is lunch time for those of us in the East Coast. It's dinner time for those of us in Europe, and it's breakfast for those of us on the West Coast. So it's a meal time for somebody around here. So we are gonna thanks Julie for the reminder. So we do have a request for that link for that Haas document that you said Monica wrote. So if you want to, I don't know, Kim, if you want to put it in the chat for the panelists, and then we can just forward it to the group, or else you can email it to me and I can make sure I get it to folks. So just,
Yeah,
you
I
have
think I'm
a
gonna
request
email it
for that
to you.
to go.
Because
Yeah,
I gotta
that's
go
fine.
get it to put it in the chat. So yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
if you can
also
email
send,
it
if
to me,
anyone's
please.
interested, the Maddie's Fund link for the grant.
Yep, so I think that period has closed, but I did put information in the chat about the Return to Home campaign. So
All
I've
right.
got that in there, and we have Amber with us too. So if I got anything wrong, I'm sure Amber will keep us honest. But there are resources on the website, and I think the No Place Like Home challenge is closed for the application for this time around. But again, we'll get clarification on all that.
Yeah, and they're sure to have it again next year, I suspect.
So, all right. Yeah, I would think they have it. They have like 2 or 3 different campaigns. There's a foster care one too, and then there might be one other one that I'm not thinking of right now off the top of my head. Anyway, all right. So it is 12:45. We are gonna go on a lunch break. We will come back at 1:30 Eastern time. Kim, thank you so much. Great presentation.
You bet.
And she's got our last lost cap.